Ukraine's military says Russia has targeted port infrastructure in the city of Odessa with cruise missiles. They say 2 strikes hit the Black Sea port and 2 others were shot down by air defense. It comes a day after both countries signed a deal brokered by Turkey and the United Nations to reopen the ports to resume grain exports. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry is now calling on both the UN and Turkey to make sure Russia holds up its end of the deal. Let's take a closer look now at that grain deal, which is hanging in the balance. Ukraine and Russia agreed that ships will be able to depart from 3 key Ukrainian ports on the Black Sea, including Odessa, which you can see up there. Turkish, Ukrainian and UN staff would monitor the loading of grain and check to ensure that the ships weren't carrying any weapons. Now, the Black Sea is still mined, so Ukrainian ships would guide commercial boats through the mines on a safe route. The Turks, Ukrainians and UN staff would also track the shipments all the way down here into Istanbul to the Bosphorus Strait to make sure they arrive safely there to be sold on to other countries. Well, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has reacted to the attack on Odessa. He's unequivocally condemned the strikes on the port city. The UN chief reminded Russia and Ukraine that they've made clear commitments to ensure safe movement to Ukraine grain to global markets. He said these products are desperately needed to address the global food crisis and ease the suffering of millions of people. Guterres called on Russia, Ukraine and Turkey to keep their commitments and implement the deal. Well, Michael Bociurkiw is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins us now via Skype from Lviv in western Ukraine. Thank you for your time. I just want to start with your response to this strike on the port of Odessa. I mean, why would Russia target a port literally a day after signing a deal saying it would allow exports?
Well, the Russians are very well known for signing deals, and even before the ink is dry, they go ahead and they violate the agreement or they cause more trouble. Mr. Guterres, the UN Secretary General, shouldn't be surprised at what happened in Odessa. After all, when he was in Kiev a few weeks ago, the Russians sent a missile not too far from where he was. It's a very, very complicated agreement. The Ukrainians have already said, Mr. Yermak, the chief of staff of the presidential office, that the Russians are basically hypocrites. They do one thing and then they say another. So there's a lot of skepticism here. And I got to say as well, I think there were 4 missiles that were headed towards Odessa. 2 were shot down, but 2 apparently hit the port. And Ukraine's defense minister recently said they only have the capability of shooting down about 50% of missiles. If they had something like the Iron Dome system, their accuracy would be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. One Ukrainian official has said this is like Vladimir Putin spitting in the face of the UN and Turkey. Beyond words of condemnation, how else do you think Ukraine is likely to respond?
Well, I don't think the Russians listen to what the Ukrainians say. I don't think they listen to what the UN Secretary General says. And I think the party to the agreement with the most clout here is Turkey, because after all, they do have fairly close relationships with Russia. Russian tourists are going to be going to Turkey in the millions. So it's a very, very important bilateral relationship. But again, the Russians have always, since 2014, signed agreements like this. In fact, when I was with the OSCE, we had a joint coordination center similar to the one they're proposing for Istanbul. And what did the Russians do after they weren't pleased with it? They walked away from it. So not much leverage, unfortunately, on the Ukrainian side.
What position is this likely to put Turkey in then? Because, as you say, it's the only one with any leverage. But even that relationship has been a little iffy. They've been on different sides of various, conflicts. So how do you think Turkey is going to take this? It wants to see itself as the deal maker, no?
Of course, Mr. Erdogan is putting a lot of stake into this, a lot of skin into the game, as we say in diplomacy. So he does not want to be made to look like a fool. I'm sure he had very stern words for the Russians. But I think the other factor here is that there are a lot of neighboring countries, Egypt, for example, which Russia has fairly good relationships with. And those are exactly the countries that have really been suffering from the increase in grain prices, bread prices, things like that. So I don't think Russia wants to make itself look like the bad guy on the block, North Africa, Middle East areas. So that could appeal to what little humanity they have left.
All right, Michael Bociurkiw there, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Thank you.
My pleasure.